Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today is my first non-makeup related video, and I thought I would tell my birth story with my daughter Elizabeth Lucia. She was born March 31st of this year at 9:35 in the morning, and she was born by C-section. Pardon the makeup that you can see on my table. I'll get started, but while I'm cleaning this up, I'll go ahead and tell the story. So I guess I'll start at my 34-week checkup. I went in for a routine prenatal visit, and they did all the normal, an ultrasound, a non-stress test, and just to make sure that she was fine in my belly and safe and happy and healthy. And they said that she was fine. And then they said, okay, let's set a date for your C-section. And for those of you that don't know, that don't follow me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, you'll know that my last pregnancy and birth had a very tragic end, and it was extremely traumatizing, and it was an emergency C-section, and my baby girl, Sophie, did not survive. So I do think it's important for those who don't already know to know that, because that did influence some of the choices that I made and some of the decisions that I made surrounding this pregnancy and birth of my rainbow baby. I just want to put that out there. I'm not going to tell the story today. It's just not time yet, but it is important for everybody to know that. So moving on. So they said, okay, let's set a date for your planned C-section. And I said, oh yes, finally, I've been waiting for this day, been waiting to plan it, and so on and so forth. And then the scheduler ended up not being there. So I sat in the waiting room waiting for her for 20 minutes, and she ended up not being there. And they're like, okay, we're so sorry, but the scheduler is not here today. It's gonna have to wait till next week. So super bummed, right? Because I've been, waiting for weeks and weeks, because I thought that they were gonna schedule it at 33 weeks, but then my doctor wasn't there, and I only wanted him. I specifically wanted that doctor. And he wasn't there, so I said, at that appointment, I had said, then let's just wait. So 33 weeks, I decided to wait to schedule it because my doctor wasn't there, and then 34 weeks, the scheduler wasn't there to schedule it and give me all the information that I needed. Okay, so then 35 weeks, go to my routine prenatal visit, finally get to schedule my C-section date. I'm so excited, yay, and just all of the excitement surrounding that. And did the non-stress test to make sure she was fine, and she was, she was fine, and she was happy, as she had been at all of my ultrasounds. Now, at this non-stress test, she was fine, but she had a 5-minute period of not moving at all, no movement, no acceleration, no deceleration. Even though I'd had a couple of Braxton hits, she didn't seem to be responding to them a whole lot. And so at first, my doctor came in and he's like, I think we should deliver you today. This was while she was not moving at all, but then I'm like, why don't I try to eat candy and drink a big thing of water, cold water, and see if we can't get her moving. And I did that, and then finally about 5 minutes later, she did big kicks and lots of movement, and they did a biophysical profile just to make sure she was fine, and she got a 10 out of 10, and she was fine. And then, so I went home, and then I went to my 36-week appointment, the standard, and it, was fine. Oh, and I forgot to mention that at my 35-week appointment, we set a date for April the 1st, when I would be 37 weeks and 6 days. I would be 37 weeks and 6 days on the 1st. And at first, the doctor had offered me March 31st, and I told him no, because my angel baby, Sophie, was born on that day, and again, that day is just traumatizing, and it's a beautiful day, but it's also traumatizing and horrible to think about, and I wanted any day but that one. Any day but that, that one, doctor, I can't. And he's like, okay, well, how about April the 1st? And I said, okay, that's fine. And I want to make a disclaimer that their birthdays were going to be about 1 year apart, a year and some change. 1 year and some change between my angel baby's birth and my rainbow baby's birth. So just a disclaimer. And so they set the date of April 1st, and I had to be there at 6 in the morning to get ready for my planned C-section. And that obviously didn't happen. That obviously did not happen. So 36 weeks rolls around and they did all the normal biophysical profile. They did that every week because I have something called immunosensitization of pregnancy, which is basically when I have antibodies in my blood that the baby does not have. The baby has the antigen and I have the antibodies. Antibodies can attack the antigen on the baby's red blood cells and cause severe anemia, and that can be lethal and life-threatening if not monitored by a maternal fetal medicine specialist. They can develop a hemolytic disease of the newborn after delivery. So I did see a maternal fetal medicine specialist for that, and up into that, throughout my pregnancy, everything had been fine. Her MOMs were always in the range of normal, and she always, didn't seem to be suffering from any of that. So that's the reason I went to term. If anybody else is watching this who has a baby who's pregnant with that condition, then just know that there is hope for you. It's not always horrible. Anyway, 36 weeks, my appointment went fine. Did an ultrasound biophysical profile, did a non-stress test, and everything was good. She got a 10 out of 10, as she always did. Lots of movement this time, so none of that scary, no movement stuff that had been happening at my 35-week appointment. Thank God. Thank God. And at 36 weeks, I kind of felt her lightening, so she was like dropping into my pelvis, and it was making it so hard to walk. Like, I had a really hard time walking the stairs, just 3 stairs, and I would be winded. I mean, I have asthma, but this was just because now I know that she was kind of a big baby for the gestation she was born at, but it was so hard to walk. I had to pee literally every 5 minutes. I mean, I had to pee a lot before she dropped, but afterwards, game over. Okay, I always had to freaking pee at this time. And so went home from that appointment, a week and some change to go, and we'll go in for a C-section. And I'm so excited, and I was so excited. I don't think I've ever been so excited and terrified before in my life. Anyway, 37 weeks goes around, and I go to my routine prenatal visit, and they do the normal. They do a biophysical profile and a non-stress test. She does fine, and I go in and I talk to the scheduler to fill out the paperwork, and they give me directions for my C-section. Now, the day before my C-section, on the 31st, I would have to go in to get my pre-C-section labs drawn, and I would have to get tested for COVID-19. Thank God neither of those things happened. I'll get to why that didn't happen in a minute, but that day, March 31st, I really wanted to do anything on that day besides go into any hospital. I didn't really want to, but obviously I would because, I had to have it done to have the C-section, so I planned for that, and I filled out the paperwork, and I went home and I packed the rest of my hospital. I still had not packed my hospital bag. Still hadn't packed it. So I came home that day and I packed my bags for the hospital and I put it all by the door. And I intended to put the car seat in the car 2 days later. I was 37 weeks on the day of my appointment, and then I was 37 weeks and 3 days. 37 weeks and 3 days. 2 days later, and I was going to install the car seat in the car, just in case something happened, between then and my planned C-section date of the 1st. So, packed all my bags, put them at the door, ready to have a baby at this point. Okay, well, the next day rolls around, and I finish up my odds and ends, and I'm so excited at this point. So excited. I just bummed around the house, and I was nesting. And, I was getting everything organized, and I set up, I'll drop a picture of the stand next to my bed that I had next to my bed at the time, and it had like a setup for diapers, and it had like a container for clothes and for wipes, and some snacks for me to eat, and my husband had put a giant water dispenser. I'll put a picture of it here too in a minute. But I can just press a button and it'll put water, and he set that up for me. That, because I knew I was having a C-section and that walking would be really hard. So I was trying to minimize the amount of walking I would have to do, besides for essential things like showering or going to the bathroom. And so I had the stand next to my bed here that had the diapers, wipes, and clothes and my snacks. And then I had the bassinet on the opposite side of it, where I could easily pick up the baby and bring her to me. And so I got that all set up, and I got out the birthing ball and I pumped it up, and I said, let's just get on the birthing ball, because I was having so much pressure down there and it was really hard to walk. And I loved the birthing ball, man. I loved it. And I sat on that ball for probably 2 or 3 hours. I was watching like Law and Order SVU. God, I love Law and Order SVU, you guys. Anyone who says the original Law and Order is where it's at, they're liars. They're liars. No offense. But SVU is where it's at. And I watched Law and Order SVU for 2 or 3 hours, and I bounced on the ball, and I did like the big hip circles, to try to get her in good position. And until I got tired, and I laid down and I took a nap because I was just so tired. So anyway, that closed out my evening for that day. And then the next day was March 31st. And I went about my day like normal, I got up and I took a shower, and what else did I do? I did something that day. I think I went to the store that my husband works at, and I helped out there. And then I came home and I cleaned some more, and I added some stuff to the hospital bag that I had forgotten about. I had ordered some stuff off Amazon for the baby, and I wanted to take them with me to the hospital, so I put them in the bag, and I had everything by the door ready to go. Thank God I at least had that. And then I laid down and I took a nap, because at this point, 37 weeks and change pregnant, I think it was 37 and 4 weeks pregnant, you're just easily tired, okay? And then I just sat around all day, and I bounced on the birthing ball some more, and I binge watched Taylor Wynn, she's a beauty guru here on YouTube. I freaking love Taylor Wynn. I would say even now, if I'm feeding the baby, I'm watching Taylor Wynn. Doing my makeup, I'm watching Taylor Wynn. Pretty much doing anything, doing the dishes and watching Taylor Wynn, because I don't watch a lot of TV, I don't watch a lot of Netflix, but I really like to watch makeup videos. I also watch a lot of Casey Holmes and Bailey Sarian. So, did that all day, and I was still exhausted by the end of it. And I laid down to watch a movie at like 9:45 at night. And she was just going crazy in my belly. Like, she was kicking and wiggling and moving. And I started having like some Braxton Hicks. Now, side note, I only felt my Braxton Hicks like right here. Like my lower left, not hip, but it was like groin meets stomach area. I would only feel them there. And it would be the normal length of a contraction, like 60 seconds, like a minute. And they were coming like, I'll insert a picture of the contraction log here, but they were coming like every 10 to 11 minutes, if memory serves me right. But I'll insert a picture of it now for you to see. And they went away, so I'm like, oh, okay, it's just Braxton Hicks. I've been getting them forever. So I, laying down and watching a movie, and there was like a little kick. It wasn't very big. And then I felt water. And at first I thought I peed myself, because the feeling is kind of similar, but it's not exactly the same. It just kind of feels the same. And so, little movement, and then some water. Not a big gush, but not a trickle. It was like somewhere in the middle. Maybe like this much came out. Maybe like the amount that would be in, do I have anything here that's about that size? Not really. maybe, yeah. Maybe about this much, if enough to fill up this little makeup powder container, about that much came out. And so I'm like thinking in my head, I didn't say anything to my husband at this time because I wasn't sure, but I kind of just, wiggled myself to sit up, and more came out, and this time I'm like, oh, okay. And so I said, I think my water broke, just give me a minute, because I wanted to stand up and walk around and see if it kept happening. So I stood up and I walked around, and yeah, it just kept coming out at this point. So I'm like, yep, my water broke, it's time to have a baby. So husband rolls up out of bed. I don't think I've ever seen a man move this fast. He got up, and we're talking, and I called my mother-in-law and I said, we're having a baby, my water broke. And she goes, oh my God, your water's broken. Steve, she's like shaking her husband, waking him up, Addie's water broke, it's time to have a baby. And this was the midst of the corona pandemic, so they weren't allowed to go in with me. It just had to be me and him. And so I can't think straight. I'm running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Oh crap, I gotta get my hairbrush, it's not in the makeup bag. I gotta find my shoes. I don't know where my shoes are. Where are my socks? I gotta find something to put on, and I gotta wear a pad because water's pouring out of me at this point. And so I squeezed myself into a pair of leggings. I have underwear on because I'm leaking, and then I took a gigantic pad. I'll insert a picture of it right here. But from my last delivery, I had kept some of, the postpartum pads that they had given me because I have really heavy periods. So I put on like 2 of those gigantic freaking postpartum pads in case I leaked everywhere. And and I put those in my underwear, and it just kept pouring out at this point. I'm running around like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to get all of this, stuff that I've forgotten in the hospital bag. You would think that I was the most organized person on the planet with the amount of times I packed it before, but no, not true. And got everything in there, and I'm like hauling stuff out to the car. And we didn't have the car seat in either at this point. So I throw like the hospital bags into the back seat, and my poor husband just throws the car seat into the car. And we didn't even have the base in either, so we didn't have the base in the car either. And he like shoves it in there on its side because my back seat is so full of crap. I hadn't even had time to clean the car out. I was going to do all of that the following day, the day before my planned C-section, so I didn't have any of that done. That's why I would recommend doing all of those things at least 3 weeks before your due date, or before your planned induction or C-section or whatever. At least 3 weeks before, preferably 5 weeks before, because you never know. You just never know. So anyway, we get all of that crap in the car, and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot my phone and my phone charger. So at this point, I have like leaked through the 2 gigantic pads I have on, and I stuff a towel into my pants. A towel into my pants. Literal towel, beach towel. I'm not going to insert a picture because you know what a beach towel is, but anyway. And I waddle in the house to get my phone and the phone charger, and then I come back out, and I am terrified. I am so scared because I can't feel her moving. She's not, moving anymore. So of course, I'm thinking the worst given what happened with our last delivery. I was a right mess. I was so scared, and I sent my sister-in-law a Snapchat, and I said, I am so afraid that she's dead because I can't feel her moving. She's like, calm down, when your water breaks, it can be, when you're in labor, it can be harder to feel them move, and, just calm down. Don't think the worst, just calm down. So that did kind of help because, I am a nursing student, so I do know some things, and, the likelihood of happening again, what happened to us last time, is very slim, like a 0.1% chance, but that's just not a chance, that you want to take. Anyway, gonna move off that depressing subject. And my husband's driving, so he's driving us to the hospital, which is about 20 minutes away. And, I'm like holding his hand. He's like, we're having a baby, this baby's deciding to come, and, maybe we don't need to have a C-section, maybe we can ride it out naturally, which was the plan. If I went into labor on my own, we would go for a VBAC instead of a C-section because the hospital we were going to was VBAC friendly. So, we get to the hospital, and he takes my last bump picture of me. I'll insert it now. I looked so horrible. I hadn't slept in 2 days and I was so tired, so excited, so excited. So he takes that last bump picture and we go up to labor and delivery, and, it's time to have a baby, and they get me all hooked up with an IV. Bless her heart, she put it here. And I have learned now that I just cannot have IVs here because they infiltrate bad. So I had an IV here and it ended up infiltrating, so I had to get it replaced later on in my hospital stay. And so we get all, hooked in, and Ellie's waking up now. And we get up to labor and delivery, and we go through triage. Do you plan to have a VBAC with us? And we told him, yeah, let's try it. Let's see how things go. And we can always opt for a C-section later if it comes to that. Which it did end up coming to that. I did end up having a C-section, as I stated before, but I'll explain why in a minute or two. And I get changed into a gown, and they do an amnosure test. Sure enough, my water's broken, as it was pretty freaking obvious. I mean, there's just pouring out at this point. But yeah, your water's broken. You gotta stay. You can't go nowhere. So I remember my husband said, "Am I gonna be allowed to go back out to the car to get my stuff, or once you're in, you're in?" And they're like, "No, you can leave to go get the stuff. You can go and get it a little bit later." And so then, after that, the midwife comes in to talk to me, and okay, you want to have a VBAC? That's cool. Okay, let's get you over to a labor and delivery room. So they get me over into labor and delivery room, and I wasn't allowed to walk because my water was broken, which was fine. I was too tired really to walk anyway. But I asked the nurse for a peanut ball because I was starting to have some contractions. They kind of hurt, and I really like the peanut ball. I'm someone who has to sleep with a pillow between her legs anyway, or else I can't sleep. So I asked for a peanut ball, and I remember this time go around, the peanut ball didn't really help any. It made my hip hurt a lot, maybe because I had gained more weight than I had in my last pregnancy. And I would just constantly be flipping side to side, and the baby would keep coming off the monitor, so the nurse would have to come in to fix it. I swear, that poor nurse, she probably had to come in to fix the monitor like 8 times. Like 8 times she had to come in to fix the monitor. And then probably twice or so, they were trying to minimize the amount of times they checked my cervix because my water was broken, and if you do a whole bunch of checking, it can, there's an infection risk. So there was that, and so they checked me, and I was closed, high and thick, wasn't dilated, wasn't effaced very much, and the baby was, kind of up, kind of high. She was like maybe right here, so she wasn't very low at all. Low enough to break my water, but not so low that she was ready to come out or anything. Basically not inducible. If I had had that cervix and had not gone into labor and they scheduled an induction, I would not have been inducible because I had a Bishop score of 0. And I couldn't be induced this go around anyway because of the prior C-section, so there was that. And shift change rolls around, so at 12 o'clock I'm fully admitted and in a labor and delivery room. At midnight I'm fully admitted and in a labor and delivery room, closed, high and thick. And so they give me a peanut ball, and we try to go to sleep, but I couldn't sleep because my eyes were just glued to the monitor, just because of what happened last time. I could not have any peace, I could not have any rest. And I remember I was texting a friend of mine who is a nurse. I'm not going to give out her name to protect her privacy, but she was a godsend when I lost my first daughter. She was a godsend. I could not have made that year without her in my life and providing that support and that comfort that I really needed in that time. And during this entire pregnancy with Ellie, she was just, she's just such a great person. And if you watch this, you'll know who you are. And I'm still so thankful for you. I was texting her and telling her, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, your water's broken, we're having a baby." And I had said, "Do you think I should just have a C-section or have a VBAC?" And, she had basically said, "Well, that's a choice that you and your spouse will have to make. But if I were you, given what's happened to you, I would just have the C-section and get it over with. Have her in your arms and have that peace." And I definitely still kind of felt that way. I definitely still kind of felt like I would rather just have the C-section and get it over with. But I want more kids in the future, and I don't, and I know that once you've had 2 C-sections, the chance of success with VBAC after 2 goes down, so I was trying to avoid that. But I definitely, still in the back of my mind kind of felt like I would just rather have one and get it over with, because I just wanted her in my arms at that point. And shift change was around 6 o'clock, and I had, thought about it. And, I'm like, okay, well, we'll just, see how the VBAC goes and all that. And the midwife comes in. The nurse checks me first, and she says I'm closed, high, and thick. And so she relays that to the midwife. And the midwife comes in, and she's asking if I'm okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just really tired. I'm just ready to have a baby at this point. And she goes, yeah, honey, I know. Why don't I check you first, and I can give you that, and then we can come up with a plan. And I said, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So the midwife herself checks me, not because she didn't trust what the registered nurse had said, because my labor and delivery room nurse was fantastic. Ooh, she was great. I don't remember her name, but she was great. And so the midwife checked, and yeah, closed, high, and thick. And she's like, you know what, your baby is just really, really high. I don't really want to give you Pitocin because that's not going to drop your baby, and you can't really have it anyway because of the prior C-section. It increases the risk of a uterine rupture. Pardon my daughter talking. She talks to herself now, 4 months old, and she likes to talk to herself. And she's like, honestly, hon, at this point your baby is so high, you're not dilated, you've been here for 10 hours, surely you'd be making some change. I think you'll feel best and you'll feel safest if you just have a C-section, just have the C-section. And I said, okay, not because I really wanted it, but because it seemed like the logical thing to do. I'm not dilating, I'm not effacing, my baby is super high, I'd had a prior C-section before. I don't even think I would have wanted Pitocin. Even if they had offered it, I wouldn't have wanted to take it because that increases, your risk of uterine rupture, which can be lethal and life-threatening to mom and to baby. So I didn't really want to do that. And I said, okay, let's just have a C-section. And I said, hey, Michael, telling my husband we're having a baby, and I felt good. I felt comfortable with that plan, and they were going to treat it like they would a planned C-section. First they had said, we'll get you back at 11 for your C-section, and we'll book you an OR for 11. My daughter's crying. Let me go get her real quick, and I'll be right back. Sorry, guys, I'm back. She wanted to be picked up. So anyway, I felt good about that plan, and I was getting to be excited because, I was about to meet my baby, meet my little girl, and, they brought Michael in his scrubs, and in his OR shoes, and she's infatuated with looking at herself in mirrors. Anyway, and he struggled for about 5 minutes or so with tying the mask, because I guess where the mask tied in the back, there's something else that it can get caught on, like the ties that tie the suit, like the OR top to him or whatever. I guess he was struggling with that. So that was pretty funny. And God, they gave me this nasty freaking crap to drink. It was like a shot, and I think it's called Bicitra or something. And God, that was nasty. It tasted like salt mixed in with grape juice, like grape soda, and it was so disgusting. Ew. And so at first, they had said 11. And then 20 minutes later, they come in and said, never mind, we're going to go back in 20 minutes. We have a free operating room for you because something happened, and now they just had an extra OR available. So I'm like, yay, even closer, So they give me my hat to put all of my hair in, and I had no makeup on, so I looked fabulous. I looked fabulous. Fabulous? Fabulous. I looked fabulous, you guys. Huge dark circles under my eyes. Definitely looked like I wanted to have a baby. And so they roll me back first because they have to pop in the spinal because I didn't have like an epidural or anything for them to tamper with. So they go in and they, a CRNA placed my spinal, and she had a little bit of difficulty because, as it turns out, I have some scoliosis, and she struggled with that for 2 or 3 minutes, but then she did successfully get it in, and I remember being so scared because it took like maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes for me to be numb. And this doesn't feel like numb, like having no feeling. You can feel touching, but you can't feel pain. So it was kind of odd. And then, they lay me back, and I remember they had to help me lay me back because I was like crying. I was so scared of getting a spinal. I was so afraid. I thought it was going to be so painful, and it really wasn't. I couldn't really feel anything at all. And the weird part is that was for my entire pregnancy. It wasn't the surgery that I was afraid of. It was the spinal that I was afraid of, and I had like nothing to be afraid of at all. It was not. The epidurals that I've had hurt 10 times worse. Get a spinal instead of an epidural. If that's an option, I would do that. Anyway, they get that in and they lay me back and making sure I'm good and numb. They test me. They're like, and they're like, here, I'm going to pinch you up here. So they pinch me like right here pretty hard. You're like, you know how that hurts? And I said, yeah. And they're like, okay, well, I'm pinching you down on your stomach as hard as I was up there. Can you feel it? And I said, no, I can't feel anything. I could feel them touching me, but I couldn't feel pain. She's like, okay, you're numb. You're not going to feel anything. We promise, your baby's almost here. It's all going to be good. And my doctor was there that day, so my doctor is the one who delivered me. Thank God, because I love him. I'm not going to give his name to protect his privacy, but he was so great. And again, I'm still very thankful for him because he truly had my best interest, given what happened last time. He wasn't my OB for my last delivery, and he was just really good. My OB this go around was really good, and he really cared, which is more than you can say for a lot of doctors. Anyway, so they get started, they start cutting me open and all that, and I'm like, where's Michael? Are they gonna bring Michael in? Where is he? And then they finally bring him in, and he's sitting on a stool next to me, and I'm like, honey, do you have the camera out? Or are you taking pictures? She's like, yes, I've got the camera out, I've got it. And, he takes pictures of the surgery itself, and I'll insert some. So they're like, okay, Mom, and I think they goes, I forgot what it is they said. I want to say they're like, okay, Mom, here we go. And, her head is, they're pulling out her head first. So she was head down. She wasn't breech. They said that, when we were discussing whether I should have the C-section, there was a chance that she was breech. She wasn't. She was head down. She was just very high. They had to exert a lot of force on my upper belly to get her down low enough to pull her out. And so they get her head out first. And then the rest of her follows. They get her shoulders out, and then the nurse goes, hi, Mom, and then they pull the rest of her out, and the doctor holds her up like Simba, like this, and I said, hi, baby, and I just start bawling my eyes out, and then Michael goes, hi, and oh, the joy that filled that room. I don't think there was a dry eye in the place. And I had told them when they were, putting in my spinal, like when they were laying me back, that, I have a birth plan for a C-section, and I would like a drop drape when she's coming out, and I would like immediate skin to skin, please. That's all I'll ask, is that you drop the drape and I get immediate skin to skin. That is very, very, very important to me for obvious reasons. What happened last time, it was just so important to me that those things happen. And it did happen. They dropped the drape, and I got to watch her come out. Like, I saw them pull her head out, and then pull the rest of her out, and then holding her up and giving her to me. And I'll insert some pictures right now of that. And I watched her come out, and it was just amazing. I mean, there's like not adequate words to describe the joy. And it is just amazing to watch your baby come out. I mean, C-section or natural birth, either one. Birth is just amazing. How do human bodies do that, man? I don't understand. I mean, I'm believing God, so I mean, that's all Him. How that happens, and they dropped the drape, and I watched her come out, and they cleaned her off and they cut and clamped the cord. We did do delayed cord clamping, so they delayed the cord for I think like a minute or so. So I didn't get her like right away, but they left it intact for a minute or two. And then they wrapped her up and they gave her to one of the peds people, the NICU people that were in the room. NICU was in the room because we had a known complication. We had a known condition of immunosensitization in pregnancy, which can cause like low APGAR scores at delivery. And so they gave her to me, and I'll insert a picture of it here. And I got not really skin to skin, but she was wrapped up in a towel, and I had on the... Sorry guys, my someone called me, so it shut off my video, but I couldn't really get skin to skin because I had on the hospital gown, and she was wrapped up in a towel, but they gave her to me, and I held her, like, on my chest. She was laid kind of odd. I'll display it here, but she was kind of like this, and she was, like, way up here by my face, and I remember saying, I can't really see her face because she was up so high, like, out of my eye view. But so they, like, lowered her down a little bit, and I kissed her head, and I'm like, I waited so long for you, and crying. I mean, just an amazing moment. And I've never gotten to immediately hold the baby at, you know, any of my deliveries before, and that just meant the world to me to have that. And I held her for probably 5 or 10 minutes. It was an OR, so I couldn't get like the golden hour immediately or anything, but I did get that after the surgery was done, so I held her on me for probably 5 minutes in the operating room. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm gonna drop her. Someone should take her now. And so the peds guy picked her up and said, okay, Dad, it's your turn. And, you know, they took her over to the baby weighing station, and they weighed her, and she was 7 pounds 3 ounces, and she was 20.87 inches, or so they said. But when we went to her pediatrician's appointment a week later, they said she was 19 and a half. So I don't know. I don't really know what her actual length was, but that's okay. She looked pretty short. She didn't look like a long baby, so I doubt that she was almost 21 inches long. I doubt it. I'm 4'11", so it would be really odd just for that reason. Anyway, my husband cut the cord, and she got her eye ointment and the hepatitis B vaccine, and they swaddled her up, and he held her, and he took her out to the recovery room to wait for me. And they finished stitching me up, and I watched them stitch me up. It was pretty interesting. I never thought that I would be someone like interested in doing surgery, but after watching that, it was pretty cool. I watched them stitch me up and put the bandage on, and it was pretty cool. And so they, put me on they rolled me to they put me on a stretcher, and then they rolled me to recovery. PACU recovery, and I got to hold her, and she nursed for probably an hour. She ate for like an hour, like right away, which was, excellent start to the breastfeeding journey. And she's talking. She's looking at her feet. She's obsessed with her feet. And I held her for like an hour in recovery, and we had a really good postpartum experience and birth experience, but best postpartum recovery experience at that hospital. And so I got to hold her, and she nursed for an hour, and after like an hour, 2 hours, they put us in mother baby, and transferred me to, well, actually I didn't even have to get out of bed because they just moved my PACU bed into mother baby, and I just stayed in that one. And my nurse came in, excellent postpartum nurse, is fantastic. Now, I want to say maybe the next day, around 6 in the morning, she was super sleepy, not really wanting to eat, and she was like losing a fair bit of weight. So because we had that immunosensitization of pregnancy condition on board that we knew about, we knew that there was a chance that she would have severe jaundice. So they did do a belly check at birth, and it was normal the first time, but then it started to, like, her belly level started to rise. At first, you know, it wasn't very high, it was like a 6. And then it went up to like a 12. And then it went up to a 14. And then throughout the whole first day, you know, it just kept getting higher. So they stuck under the bilirubin lights, and she was under belly lights for a total of 4 days. And I'm not going to go into the whole story of that with her. Maybe that would be, sorry, I was, you know, turning my light back on. Maybe that'd be a good subject for a whole nother video, like dealing with jaundice and immunosensitization of pregnancy. I can do a whole video on that if anybody would like to hear about it. But it fluctuated. But eventually, on the 4th day, they did 2 consecutive bilirubin blood draws. And at first, ow, I just twisted my ankle. At first, it was 12.5, but then it was 12. And they had said, you know, if it stays at 12, if it doesn't rise anymore, because up until that point, it had been rising a little bit at every check, we'll let you guys go home. And so finally, you know, it wasn't rising anymore, and awesome possum. And, you know, it didn't rise anymore, so, you know, you guys can go home. And they discharged us at like 10 o'clock at night. Like, why didn't you just keep us overnight at that point? But they let us go home pretty late in the day. And we went home. My mother-in-law is the one that drove us home. And at first we were going to stay at her house because she had another setup. She had like a bed that's easier for me to get in and out of. And I was going to do that at first, but then I'm like, changed my mind. I'm like, I kind of just want to go home and be in my own bed, and, you know, everything that is there that I need. And she's like, are you sure? And I said, yeah, you know. So we went home, and it was pretty smooth sailing from then on out. She struggled with weight gain for the first couple of weeks, just related to the jaundice. You know, it took probably a month or a month and a half for her to completely work it out of her system. The jaundice from immunosensitization of pregnancy is different than just typical newborn jaundice, so it can take longer for them to work it out of her system. But she did, and, you know, it just progressively got better. Now she is 12 pounds and change, and she'll be 4 months old on the 31st. And she is just the happiest, sweetest baby. She rarely ever cries. She loves to play. And she is just, you know, she is the light of my life. And I love her so. And I mean, the past year before her arrival was, you know, it was just hell, you know, dealing with the grief and the loss of you know, my first daughter. And it was just horrible. And in some ways, I think she saved my life. And I'm just so grateful for her. I don't think I'll ever be able to say that enough. And, you know, she's just definitely where are you going? She's just a ray of sunshine, and I'm so grateful, you know, to have her, and that God entrusted me with her, and, you know, to raise her. And I hope I, you know, do the Lord proud. I hope I do the Lord proud. But anyway, that was my labor, delivery, and postpartum experience with my rainbow baby. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know this was a long one. As always, drop down in the comments what you want to see me do next. Now that she's here, I will probably eventually start to do like some lifestyle videos, maybe some mom vlogs, working mom vlogs, because I am a working mom. So we might do some of those in the future. Maybe I'll do like a what's in my hospital bag, or what was in my hospital bag versus what I actually used. Just let me know if you guys would like to see something like that, if any of you have kids. But thank you guys for tuning in. And I'll insert some better pictures of her now. I was going to show you guys her, but you guys have seen her for probably half of the video now. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. You want to say bye? You want to say bye? Bye.